There are so many different ways to build a successful coaching business. There's no one right way. And today we're going to give you insight into 2 different ways to build your business. And we're going to do this in what I think is the most interesting way to do it, which is to share our stories.
And Megan and I started our businesses in polar opposite ways.
Completely different.
And both worked. So Meg, do you want to share a little bit? I like your story a lot. Do you want to share a little bit about how did you go from, I think you were working in the nonprofit sector, into coaching?
Yeah. So I want to share a distinction first. There are bridge builders and there are boat burners. And I'm a boat burner. And that's an analogy that comes from, there's this old parable about somebody that took their army to battle and they got out on the shore. They were vastly outnumbered. And they looked at the other army on the hill. And the general burned all the boats and was like, if we lose, we die. There's no retreating. And then bridge builders.
Oh my God.
Bridge builders build the bridge slowly over time to their next position. So Peter's a bridge builder, probably a less stressful way to go. And I am a boat burner, which is a very stressful way to go, but it was the only way for me. So I accidentally got into coach training, but after my second weekend, I was like, I'm all in. Full time, I'm doing this. And I gave notice at my job, and I first cut back to half-time, and then I cut back to full-time. But I, didn't even know how to coach, let alone build a coaching business, because I'm a first-generation entrepreneur.
So hardcore.
So hardcore. And so what I did was, with all these hours in the day, I was like, marketing. Of course, I didn't really know what that meant. So here's what it looked like, right? It looked like going to every networking event that I could find and talking to people to try to let them know I was a coach. It looked like sending in my Christmas newsletter this update like, I'm a coach, like, why don't you hire me, to friends and family, which was a weird thing to do, but it actually got some people sending me clients. I had this really cool method of reaching out to people on social media, which we share in our 3-day challenge, but I used social media to my benefit. I also posted constantly on Facebook these really adorable sort of handmade graphics that were live your best life, try coaching. And I gave all these big discounts, a month of coaching for $100 and things like that. So I heavily discounted my services. I went out and met a ton of people. I was just obnoxious about it. I'm doing this now. If you knew me at the time, every day I was posting about coaching. And I really made it my one mission to let everyone that I knew know that this was my new job.
And I just want to underline that for a moment, because that's so key. So I know so many people who are coach trained, nobody in their life knows they were a coach.
Yeah.
And so they didn't become a coach because they weren't a coach in the world.
Right.
And you were I am a coach in the world. You went out, and that became who you were to people.
Right.
And so when people thought about coaching, they thought about you.
That's right. They totally did. And they were like, "Oh, you seem pretty interesting and somewhat successful. Sure. Let's do it." The other thing is I said yes to everything. So when you're doing this, when you're telling people, "I'm a coach, I'm a coach, I'm a coach," they're like, "Oh, can you help me with this?" And I was like, "Yes." Including, I once took a job with this nonprofit, and they're like, "What do you want to teach a workshop on?" And it flopped in an extreme way. In person, in front of the whole team, it flopped real hard.
Whew.
But gosh, did I learn some important lessons. So I just made peace as much as I could with putting myself out there and falling short in some places. And then other times I'd coach people, even though I'd only been coaching for a few months, and they'd be like, "This changed my life." I think the magic of coaching and remembering that if you listen to people, really listen to them, ask a few questions, and just care about them reaching their goals, it does magical things, even if you're not that well trained, although I recommend that you get well trained.
What quintessentializes this style of getting into coaching?
Urgency, heavy on marketing, saying yes to everything. So this way of building a business works, and it's really stressful. And that's why I love our 3-day coach challenge, because it's going to teach you the places to hold your attention if you do want to build your business quickly. But rather than throw spaghetti at the wall, it gives you 3 places to look in our tried and tested strategies. And one of those strategies is the thing that got me most of my clients in the first 2 years. And I created it in this moment of fear paralysis where I had no clients, my bank account was in the red, and I was lying on my floor what am I going to do? And this idea came to me, and I just used it over and over again for 2 years. It was amazing. So come check it out. That is actually free. It's day 1. It's free. And you can click the link in the description of the video to go and grab that day 1 for free.
So I did things a very different way. I did really slow and steady. I was working in sports medicine, and I took a coach training, and it just like blew my mind. I was like, "Oh my God, this is what I want to do." And then I kept working in sports medicine, and I started my coaching practice on the side. And then I took another coach training, and then I took another coach training. And I just continued my education, and I built this up slowly and actually got clients for coaching from patients from sports medicine. And I was also very vocal. I let people know I'm a coach. But I built my business up slowly until it could support me fully. So I didn't have that really stressful jump because I didn't know how to do the different marketing things. I was a lot more tentative about that. And so that also worked really well. But my learning curve was a lot slower, at least until I met Megan.
Well, let's think about, though, what was really cool about that. So, how did you leverage your client base in one industry to jump to another industry? Say more about that.
So I worked in one industry where people knew, liked, and respected me, and they trusted me because I helped them with their pain, and often you know, I would help them, their mom, their dad, their cousin, their girlfriend, their boyfriend, whatever. Like I worked with people. I had a lot of trust, and so sometimes they would struggle with things, and I would do a little bit of coaching on the table. Or I would offer to do a free session. And I would like give my time away so that they could experience that. And people, I had a bunch of people who went from paying a lesser amount for the sports medicine work and paying way more for us to like sit and do coaching, which was like blew my mind. I was like, oh my God, like I don't even have to touch them. I can just, work, we can have a conversation, and that's so valuable. And it started changing people's lives in a much more radical way.
It's really about generosity, is what I hear in that, and leveraging the know, like, and trust factor. These people know, like, and trust you. So you offer them something for free. They're more likely to take you up on it because they know you, right? And then they're like, wow, you really made a difference for me. And that's a great way to get referrals.
Totally. So if you already have work in an industry where people know, like, and trust you, and you start to introduce that and offer that as a gift, that's a huge place for conversion to be like, oh, you offer this, you can also offer this. Wow, I love it. And especially if you've already met people who you click with, who you're a fit with, the amount of impact you can have on their life is higher because they're more open to you.
There was an important moment in your coach business building also because you spent so much time building that baseline of clientele. And then during the pandemic, right, you were like, I just need to take sports medicine off the table because it's not even something I can do. So, talk about how you then made the shift into coaching because at that point you needed to get far more clients to live.
Yeah, it was interesting with COVID. I had like a few clients left for sports medicine, and then COVID came and shut all that down, and then like a bunch new clients showed up for coaching because everyone was like, freaking out, and people needed support. So it was just a natural transition, and then people were also like flocking to my online courses as well. So that was just a beautiful to have. I had a teacher once who always said, always have 3 ways to make a living. And so when COVID happened, one of my ways of living died and the other two blew up.
Well, this is really important because what you're saying is that as you were building your coaching business on the side, you weren't just seeing one-off clients, you were actually also building assets. Like you were building the digital courses, you were building your knowledge of coaching such that when you were ready to transition full-time, people were finding you through that and through referrals. And I think that's important because hearing your story, I'd be like, that's nice, Peter. It's great you had an influx of clients suddenly. How do I replicate that? And the thing that I think is replicable is building a referral base and building your assets and your brand so that people can enter.
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest things that I learned from in working with you was how important long-term contracts were. I used to allow clients to work with me for like a month or 3 months, and the game totally changed for me financially when it was like 6-month contract minimum. I don't work with anybody for less than 6 months.
It's so funny because nowadays I only do month-to-month contracts, like unless it's like a big corporation. So it's just another example of how you can find different ways of working with people.
When I was beginning, people would sign up for me for a month or something. I now work month to month too. I learned that from you, but I make it very clear to people. if you don't have the intention of working with me for 6 months to a year, like sure, we'll work together for a month. If we like each other, we can keep going. You can stop anytime. But if you don't have the intention to work with me for 6 months to a year, don't sign up.
Right.
That's not what I do.
Right.
And so the energy, like because I have that in my system of like I work with clients for minimum 6 months, like that transmits, and people stay with me usually for over a year.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's right. So just why don't you bottom line a recap of how you built your business?
So the way I built my business was I continued to hold my job so I had that stability, and I minimized it, and then I built up trust, I built up relationships, I built up assets and connections in that world as well as clients over time, so that the day came that I was able to drop this and it was no problem. There was no shift in my income.
So in our 3-day challenge, the first day is one of my favorite tips from when I was a new coach. The second two are really your tips. Maybe the middle one's both of ours. Both of ours.
But then the last day, my favorite.
It's a really fun one. So if you're interested in that, click the link in the show notes and you'll be able to go check that out. Thanks so much for being here. Like we mentioned at the beginning, there's a lot of different ways to grow your coaching business. And I think if you were to ask any coach, they'd have a slightly different story. So we're honored to be here as you write your story. And we hope that you've learned some great things from us.
And if you want to like and subscribe so you continue to follow us, we would love that.